conversations outside the chambers. And now we have Kimberly Cuevas, student from Bayside School and Kiwanis Student of the Month for September, to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Kimberly, could you come up, please? And Kimberly's entire family has come, so thank you very much for all for coming. And I want to thank Principal Kevin Court for coming. And just I'll say something about Kimberly for a second. Kimberly is a sixth grader, has a positive attitude towards school and learning. She is a hardworking, conscientious student who's always trying to improve her skills. She volunteers at the church and is always willing to lend a hand where needed. You can always depend on Kimberly to set a good example in citizenship as well as scholarship. And her teacher said, "I feel honored to be Kimberly's teacher and look forward to learning about her future successes."
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay. Are there any agenda changes? Yes.
I'd like to request the council agree to pull item 2.3, which is the item concerning repeal of various outdated ordinances, or city council policies, I should say. There are a couple of them that are fairly recent that I'd like to have a review of at some point, not necessarily tonight, but we can have a brief discussion of it at the end of the agenda.
Okay.
So I move that we pull that item.
We have to vote on that, or we just agree to it, or?
There's one other item though, Mayor, before you vote.
Right. Oh, we're not done yet. So I just want to make sure we have to vote on the changes, right? Okay. And then any other changes to the agenda?
Could staff request that we move item 5.1, which is the Boy Scout, up to right after this vote of the event agenda changes, and have that be the next item on our agenda?
Okay. Good. So I would like to entertain a motion to move the agenda items to have 2.3 pulled from the consent calendar, and then have 5.1 to be as part of the presentations.
Yes, please.
A motion.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. And now we have announcements from city council members, starting with Mr. Patton.
Thank you. On September 26th, a Fleet Reserve Association, I'm an associate member, and my dad's a member, and they're having a casino night. It's a $20 donation, good fun. I went last year. It's a event that raises money for all that they do for both retired and active duty military. And then also I wanted to just kind of give a shout out to our public service, fire department, sheriff department, lifeguards. During this latest heat wave we've had, they've done a super job. If you've gone down to the beach was so packed. All those people were out on the street and also just everywhere. And we can have the best restaurants, the best hotels, the best community, but without the best public safety, we're nowhere. And I think we have the best public safety. So thank you, gentlemen.
Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. I have a number of items I need to report out on, so please bear with me. The first one I want to hand out to my colleagues. October is Rideshare Month. And of course, as our representative to MTS, this was pretty important to me. I would like, and I have already signed people up, iCommute is having a contest for the people who register at iCommute and log in all of their trips on public transportation or alternative methods of walking. So that is through the entire month of October, and each day you can log in and you're entered to win prizes and a new bicycle. So if I could pass these down to my colleagues, if you could share them with people in the community as well. I would also like us to put this on our website. This is really important for our community, of course. Alternative modes of transportation, the bus, the trolley, Uber, walking, however you can leave your car at home one day. So I wanted, and like I said, I have spoken with iCommute. They are going to be keeping track of the people from Imperial Beach for me who sign up. So I'm hoping that we may have a little something for them as well at a future meeting. Uh, Also, I did, as we're on the subject of transportation, there has been a change in one of our routes, 901. I have received some calls from members of the community who were wondering what that was going to mean to them. And um, the 901 route is really, it's not going to affect anybody here in Imperial Beach. It's really changes in Otay. I am excited to announce that in this round of changes, we have added service on several routes. So anytime that MTS can add routes, we're always pleased about that. I am our chairman for the Accessibilities Committee at MTS. I did want to hand this out and have this put on our website as well. At our last meeting, these are the forms of ID that are going to be acceptable if you have a senior or disability pass. So there was some confusion about this. I wanted to make sure that the community is aware of these are the only forms of ID that will be accepted. So if I could ask that that be put on our website as well. And at that meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the accessibility committee meets 4 times a year. Though sometimes we struggle to have a full agenda. So there has been some movement to maybe only meet twice a year. So at our December meeting, that will be a topic of discussion and will be voted on. Just bear with me if I could. I did want to, and I'm sure one of my other colleagues will address it as well, but on September 8th, we had our alley paving groundbreaking ceremony, which was absolutely wonderful to be in the alley, in the neighborhood with our shovels. What was really wonderful about it was the number of people from the neighborhood that showed up and just shared their stories. Unfortunately, some of those people had been waiting for 43 years to have their alley paved, but good things come to those who wait. So we were pleased and excited to be there. On September 9th, as the city's liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, I did attend their BID meeting, and they really delved into their budget, took a real deep dive into it, made some changes, but had some real good discussion about what was pertinent to the BID and the communities. So there were a lot of new members at that meeting, people who had not been before. So like us here, anytime you see new faces in the crowd, you're always pleased. At the MTS Executive Committee meeting, we did hear some discouraging news from the California Air Resource Board. They are in the spring of next year really going to hit public transportation agencies hard with some new measures that are really going to have an impact in the MTS budget. These deal with zero emission buses. And we're very concerned, our delegates on the executive board, including County Supervisor Ron Roberts and Paul Jablonski, our CEO, are really struggling with this. If the budgetary impacts that they're forecasting come true, we may see some discontinuation of services in our system. So that's always concerning to us. We don't ever want to cut services if we don't have to. One of the pieces of good news that we heard, though, is there's a new courthouse, there's a new trolley station at the courthouse area. And this station was really designed to address peak overcrowding on the blue line. So as you know, I'm always talking about how overcrowded the blue line is. So if we can do this new courthouse station and alleviate some of that, I am always pleased about that. I did, because I serve on the Transportation Committee from MTS, I did want to bring and have for approval, or just if anybody was interested in looking at it, this is the draft for the regional plan from Sandag. It's a huge document. One of the things that I found really interesting, though, there was 7,000 comments to this document. And Sandag staff is going through each one of those and responding and putting them in categories. So when we talk about vetting a plan, you can surely believe that Sandag is doing that on this project, on the regional plan. And then just some happenings around town. on September 12th, I did attend the grand opening for Father Joe's new thrift store. It's not in the city of Imperial Beach, it's at 1555 Palm Avenue. However, Father Joe's Villages really helped the South Bay address homeless problems. And as you know, in Imperial Beach, we have a small homeless problem, but his efforts I don't think should go unnoticed. I also attended the Friends of the Library, their last book sale of the year before the demolition of the library, and books were going at rock bottom prices. And I just wanted to thank the Friends of the Library for all the work that they do. That same day, I did attend the MTS Blue Line renewal celebration at the E Street Trolley Station, which was a hit. There were so many people throughout the region, um, just really celebrating the completion of the Blue Line renewal project. That was a $60 million project. It was the longest renewal project in the history of MTS, as far as they renewed the green line, then the orange line, and then finally the blue line. And all of the people there, the dignitaries, did not go without mentioning how patient the people in the South Bay have been. So I was really pleased and proud of that. I also did attend the Kiwanis September Fest the same evening. This Kiwanis does so much for our community, and just like with their Stuff the Bus program. So I didn't want their efforts to go unnoticed either. And finally, wanted to announce that the Chamber of Commerce is having their Blues and Barbecue event this Saturday from 10 to 3 at Pier Plaza. So I know they're looking for volunteers. It's a great event, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the San Diego Independent Rates. These are water and wastewater rates oversight committee. I'm the representative to that commission from the Metro Joint Powers Authority, which manages wastewater throughout the San Diego County. There have been increases in water rates lately. Everybody has gotten notices, but I just wanted to pass on to you that those rate increases have been carefully reviewed by a lot of professionals, including the two boards that I sit on. I feel that they are unfortunate, but well supported and well defended factually. So I just wanted you to know that somebody in Imperial Beach is paying attention to these things that are going on globally involving water rates. I had to actually, and I think it was a losing argument, make the case for Metro JPA, which is all of the smaller communities that are part of the whole San Diego wastewater complex. We were reviewing the San Diego's proposal for purple pipe rates. We don't have that in this community. We don't have recycled water in this community, but the South Bay has a significant amount of recycled water, and so does North County. And the rate proposals were to harmonize, equalize the rates between South County and North County, even though the systems are separate. And the issue is the fact that the Otay Water District, which runs our recycled water in the South Bay, has already paid for its infrastructure. And in my view, there was a bit of an injustice that the South Bay ratepayers would have to pay a rate that essentially subsidizes North County, who haven't yet fully paid for their separate infrastructure. So I managed to convince the rest of the commission that we should recommend that there be rates in accordance with the actual costs for each of the areas of South County and North County. Whether San Diego will adopt that, I don't know, but to me, it's in the interest of fairness that they do. We have a League of California Cities conference coming up. There are several items that are going to be voted on at that conference. And as soon as I am able to get a hold of the package, I will pass those on to the city manager or city attorney to see if there are any any recommendations on those. I don't think we have a meeting scheduled between now and the 30th of the month when the conference starts. So I don't know, maybe we could figure out some way to get that input, if there is any from the council. I know one item is short-term rentals, vacation rentals, that's on that agenda for a statewide policy or law being very liberal with short-term rentals. That's been an issue of some division in this community. There are pros and cons about it, and I've seen both those arguments, both sides of that argument very clearly over the years. Typically, the way when I've represented Imperial Beach on these matters, my general approach has been, in the absence of any specific guidance from the City Council, has been to assure that our local jurisdiction, our City Council, and other local municipalities have the maximum leeway to govern themselves, rather than have one-size-fits-all policies imposed from Sacramento. And that generally is the way the league operates as well. It's an organization of cities. They want to preserve as much of their autonomy as they can on issues that are local, like vacation rentals. To me, it's almost a no-brainer that that'll be up to the cities. So there may be a couple other items on there as well. And we'll have to figure out how we can get some input from the council on those items.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
reports? On October 10th, we have Imperial Plaza at 6:30. We have the second Symphony by the Sea. It'll feature once again SDSU's Wind Symphony and Symphony Orchestra. So all of you are invited. It should be once again, a great event. I see Chairman Malcolm from the Port of San Diego here, and thanks to you and the Port of San Diego, that's being made possible with the generous grant. So that's great. If you didn't go last time, you missed out. So please come on October 10th. And then I'm proud to announce also, thanks to the Port of San Diego, thank you, Chairman Malcolm, we have Military Appreciation Day, November 8th. And I know that for those of you who grew up in Imperial Beach, we used to have Navy Day. It was a very long history of doing that. I remember one year, I think the helicopter showed up or something. So that was kind of a tradition. So I'm really glad that it's being brought back. And we're working with the military service organizations, the American Legion, the VFW, and the Fleet Reserve to bring that back, along with the Navy Federal Credit Union, and military recruiters, all the military service branches, and then of course Hutchins Realty, the Old Plank, and United Port of San Diego and Coronado Brewery have all been very generous supporters of that, and the Chamber of Commerce is really kicking in to really help out with that. So very, very excited about that. So that'll be from 12:30 to 3:30 on Sunday, November 8th, and the Navy Southwest 32nd Street Brass Band will play. So that's great. So now we have some communications from city. Oh, and then it rained yesterday, which is awesome, but it's a real bummer because the river flowed and the beach is closed. So we're going to postpone the Dempsey Holder Ocean Festival surf contest until November 7th. So we've let everybody know. The city's been working with us on that, and everybody gets it. And I met with the EPA last week and Chris Helmer from the city of IB, and to talk about the lack of protocol on the diverter pipe in the Tijuana River. They're committed to developing a protocol with Mexico. It's a very diplomatic issue, but that's something we have to work on. There's no protocol for turning on the pipe that sucks water out of the Tijuana River when it gets to a certain level at all. So that's something we have to make sure. So they're very aware of that. They need to open that. I will be communicating with authorities in Baja California that work in the US about that, and we'll be letting them know we expect that diverter pipe turned on as soon as water levels get to a certain level, because we got to get our beaches open. So anyway, I really like it rain, but let's hope it doesn't, not for a while. So anyway, and now we have some communications from city staff. City Manager Andy Hall.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'd like to remind you and inform the public that we are planning to have a workshop on our code compliance next Wednesday evening, the 23rd, at 6 o'clock in the community room. And Councilman Spriggs, I was thinking that upon review of the League of California Cities packet, if you feel like you need direction from the council, that might be an opportunity before the 30th to get that. So, okay.
I think I have and then we have, is that it?
There were a couple other staff members. I'm sorry.
Public, Hank Levine, Public Works Director, has comments.
Not yet, Brad. Sorry. Should have whispered in your ear. I'm sorry. He is prepared, right? He's nervous probably too. Mayor, council members, many of you knew uh, Mike King was a fleet supervisor in the city for about 36 years, I think it was, and retired in early July. And the city did an advertisement, an announcement for soliciting for a new fleet supervisor. And we went through the recruitment process, and the board um, identified 3 very qualified applicants to fill this position. And so 3 of us within the Public Works Department then interviewed those 3 applicants and selected the most qualified of the very qualified persons. And I'd like to say we selected the one that's in-house. If Mike Mercury would stand up. He's our new fleet supervisor as of a couple weeks ago. I'm very pleased to have him with us and taking over this position and keeping the tradition of our fleet managed in a high quality that they do.
Mayor, council members, like give a thank you to Hank for giving me the opportunity to run the fleet division. I had worked under Mike King for 13 years and really saw a lot, and I'm prepared to take over the reins.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Levine. And now we have Lieutenant Brown from the Sheriff's Department, I think, to share some good news.
About 6 months ago, I reported on the Sandag information on the crime rate in Imperial Beach, and so, and the mayor and council gave me advice and encouragement on what they'd like to see done. We could bring the slide up. We did it. Oh, we don't know if we have it.
I have it.
Okay. So Sandag puts out the FBI crime statistics, and they released a report on Monday showing the crime rate of every city in San Diego County. There are 18 cities in San Diego County, and Imperial Beach is now ranked the 2nd safest city in the county, next to Poway, which means we are the safest beach in the county. It was our goal. We worked pretty hard, and the most important reduction is a 47% reduction in violent crime.
That's amazing.
It isn't just police work. That's everybody here. That's everybody. I even heard it this evening, but I usually hear it every week I come. Public safety is thought of when making decisions. And you guys make those decisions. The city makes those decisions, and the people are always making those decisions, making it easier and easier and easier to be a cop in IB. And as the top cop, I couldn't be prouder of my people. We made some changes, but we didn't make anything dramatic. Our arrests actually went down. So we have that much less. We were focusing on specific people who were responsible for the majority of the crimes, so we didn't have to make mass arrests. And we were able to stay on those people when they were returned. And this is while most counties have gone up in the crime rate, and overall the county crime rate was even. So about even. So our going down 47% mean other people went up. And you can see the cities. We were 7th at the end of 2014, and we were happy to be 7th because we beat Coronado for the first time. They did quite well too, but didn't catch us. But they moved into 3rd. But we, in our wake, we passed Carlsbad, Encinitas, Solana Beach, Santee, and San Marcos. And all of those places, many of those places have fine people and fine police forces, but we did even better. So I just wanted to report on that and let you know where we were. Hopefully I have better news. Poway is only 4 points away. We gained 4 points on Poway because their rate actually went up slightly and ours went down. So we gained 4 points. We only have 4 more, and maybe at the end of the year we can. They don't actually have tourists though.
Yeah, no one goes to Poway unless they have to.
But we will try. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you. The manager of the sheriff's crime statistics and the way you operate is a real model for other agencies. And I know that our city's collecting a lot more data and really trying to be a lot more intentional about how we illustrate how we're meeting our objectives. And the fact that arrests are down and crimes down is actually really, really significant on a national level. So thank you so much for the work you do. It's very impressive. Okay, now we have the public comment period. And just remember, everyone, that for those of you watching on YouTube as well, you can talk to us. We can't talk to you. The city manager will report on, can take notes on any substantive issues that have to come up. And that we do care, even though we look like we might be a little bit more neutral. So anyway, I have 3 cards. Did anybody else? There's some blue cards there. Are they? Okay, with that, Mr. Jim Mickelson. And remember, you have 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you. Jim Mickelson, representing the Chamber of Commerce. My address is 169 Elkwood. Just want to remind, but I think Councilmember Bragg already did this weekend, the second annual Barbecue and Blues Festival put on by the Chamber of Commerce and with major sponsorship by the Port of San Diego. Thank you, Chairman Malcolm. The Business Improvement District of Imperial Beach, Coronado Brewing, the Imperial Beach Resorts Incorporated. We're going forward. The rain didn't affect us. Our partner unfortunately had to reschedule. Dempsey Hill had to reschedule, but we have a great lineup of bands, a variety of barbecue food vendors coming. And we'd like to invite the mayor and council and all the city workers and all the citizens of Imperial Beach to come on out. It's going to be a nice sunny day, and we will be probably the only major event in town that day. So come to the beach and come enjoy barbecue and blues.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelson. And now I have Cheryl Quinones.
Good evening, Mayor Dedina, council and staff. My name is Cheryl Quinones. I live at 1137
Can you
Iris.
pull the microphone just closer? There you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
1137 Iris Avenue in Imperial Beach, 91932. I'm here to inform the city council and staff that we are residents. We have formed an action committee and on social media to bring about awareness of business practices at our local grocery stores regarding Wally's and Save a Lot. The group was started Saturday night, and as of today, members number in excess of 809. The incident that started the call of action was a problem by Bernice de la Cruz. Miss de la Cruz purchased 90 pounds of rotten chicken this last weekend. And as protest organizer, when you need action, you take it to the streets. And that's exactly what we did by holding a dual protest at Wally's and Save You Foods Monday evening. Media coverage by Channel 10, Univision, The Reader, IB Times covered, and local Times covered our message to the community and the San Diego County throughout. Wally's in Imperial Beach and Save a Lot is owned by the same person. Selling rotten expired food is his business model, and we're sick of it. Things we did to help the cause. We protest. We use group to organize. We went silent shopping today, and we have receipts, and we have the food products that I want to show you. But one in general, we bought some frozen juice, and it was supposed to be frozen, but it was not. It was soft and warm. We returned that item. However, we bought beets and other groceries. I don't know if I'm pulling them out, but as I do.
Ms. Quinones, you have about 8 seconds left.
Pardon me?
You have about 8 seconds, 5 seconds left.
On the pork part?
It was 1.
City clerk?
Well, it was a request, right? How long would you like to speak for? How many more minutes would you like to speak for?
Just a couple, few more minutes.
Okay,
Mayor.
about 2 more minutes.
Okay. Let's see. We have investigated this company who wants to buy our 9th and Palm grocery outlet. The city of Imperial Beach residents do not want an outlet. We have an outlet, which is Wally's. We want quality food that's fresh, nutritional, and not rotten and not overdated. Okay. I have more information about that, but I'll move forward. Business license expired. It's old. Expiration day 1/14/2014. Okay, so I'm moving forward. We've called Yelp. News Imperial Beach catch says Wally caught selling rotten food. It goes on. That was 9/16/15, and it goes on with more posters about the chicken laid at the door at Wally's. Rotten food. Somebody else says rotten food, beer. It's continuous drama. The city did call the health department. It's an assumption, but we're told that they came yesterday and found nothing on the shelves to be expired, but we did today, and raw meat had green mold on it, which I'd be happy to share with you at the end of the meeting. And I have my receipts and pictures. All food we got today is rotten. Okay. Team Ted came out, did a story online as well as on on the news. Getting closer to the end. Our motto is to be a classic beach community. And looking up the word classic, classic is judged over a period of time to be of highest quality and an outstanding of its kind. Right now, we are not outstanding. Our food quality is poor, if not none, and our tourists are being affected when they come through our corridor of Palm and see our dirt mountain for 10 years and go to Wally's for groceries. That's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. And in closing, again, this was in 1913. We had a Marcus Boyd come and start a petition, and to no avail, nothing happened. We had a protester that was, the bottom line is organizing the problem, which we need to work together to find a positive way in to approach this. So in closing, we would like to sit down with the council and Mayor Dedina to discuss our positive opportunities moving forward together to get quality food, a quality food store, and demand Wally's to get with the program, or our city license will be pulled effective immediately. Thank you, Cheryl Quinones.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time, sir. I appreciate you, and council and staff.
Now I have no more.
If anybody wants any salsa.
Now we have the item 5.1. We proposed ESA Eagle Project presentation. And Public Works Director Levine will introduce the item and take a presentation from Brad Mueller regarding proposed improvement.
Council, Mayor Dedina and Council, Brad is here tonight to propose a project. It would complete a initiative that you started with some Boy Scouts for working on Eagle projects at Sports Park last March, and there's been 3 islands of the 4 completed for changing to a drought tolerant landscape. And he's here to propose that he complete the last one.
Great, thank you.
So I want to do sports park parking lot landscape project. And what I would like to do is take out the grass and put in desert gold dirt, and we create some mounds and put rocks on top of it. And there was the three next to it have been done the exact same way. They're all a little bit different, but pretty much the same. what it'll cost. We put weed block down so the weeds don't grow in the dirt. Those are about $20 altogether. And we need 2 boulders to go on each mound. Those are about $30 each, so 60. And we need about 2.3 yards of the desert gold dirt, which is going to cost around $100. I'm requesting to do this project as part.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments? Mike? Okay.
Comments for these guys. So Brad, can you go back to the title slide, Mr. Levine? Or, yeah, that title slide right there says it all. That's a catchy title slide. You know, if I'm doing a presentation, I think you had the whole audience riveted just by that slide alone. Let me ask you this question. What was your biggest obstacle in preparing not only this presentation, but preparing this project? Don't say Mr. Levine.
I don't know, just trying to find a place to get the materials from, because a lot of the places don't have anything on their website, and you have to call them, and sometimes they can't even answer your questions very well. So.
When you're on the phone,
Yeah.
trying to, they don't understand what you're
Yeah.
asking and things like that.
But we found a good place.
Excellent. Thank you for participating in this.
Councilmember Bragg?
Thank you. Mr. Levine, if you could put the slide that has the actual picture of, okay, there. On the slide on the right, I'm just a little bit concerned about the placement of the boulder. Has anybody complained about it making difficult, the boulders being there to open their car doors and having any problems maneuvering around those boulders? Have we encountered any? Because I did hear from a community member.
Oh, really? I've not had any, and you know, they're 10 feet wide, so and they're roughly in the center. So it's a pretty good distance from the curb. And most cars don't actually park their wheels right on the curb. So there's usually a pretty good distance. But if you're parking there, you will be stepping out into decomposed granite. You're certainly. So it was a concern that the rock was, the boulder was in the way of the door or something like
Yes,
that?
that was the concern. Have
Hmm.
you had any comment like that at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I know that the placement of the boulders, you really scrutinize that. So I would just expect that on this very last remaining island. So, thank you.
Any additional comments? Thank you, Mr. Mueller. You're a model for anybody who comes and talks to our council. In fact, I think you give some lessons to a lot of our consultants that spend what it seems to be hours talking to us. Anyway, thank you very much. Awesome presentation. And, you know, we just had a discussion at some point about storm drains and storm runoff. And there's going to be a lot more regulations on this. So you're going to actually help make a significant difference in us making sure that runoff doesn't go into the Tijuana Estuary and then the ocean, where Mr. Pat and Mr. Bilber and I will surf in it. And Mr. Spriggs will body surf in it, and Ms. Bragg's son will drop kneeboard into it, bodyboard into it. So anyway, thank you very much. And with that, I think we want to entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the Eagle project plan for Brad Mueller to continue the project development and construction as approved by city council and city staff. Is there a motion? A second. Please vote. Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Mueller. Appreciate it.
Motion carried unanimously.
And now we get to the more fun stuff. We have presentation 1.1, presentation of Port District activities by Port Commissioner Malcolm. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I fear I'm not going to be as succinct and pithy as Mr. Mueller. That's a tough act to follow there. You did a good job, though. It is a pleasure to be here tonight, and it actually has been a while. It has been a very, very busy year. And so the presentation may go a little bit longer, but I'm going to power through it. But I want to thank, you know, there's a lot of preparation that goes into this, and our staff is really great. They're black belts in PowerPointology, but more than that, they really do care about the city of Imperial Beach. They really do. And I know you've got Ron Powell sitting here who comes down here all the time. And I'll tell you, Ron has got a passion for this city, and he's not the only one at the Port of San Diego. And that's really neat to see. They really, there's something happening here, and the staff of the port really is into that. So I'm going to launch right into it, and I just want to start by saying, if I forget to say it later, I want to thank you all for really the honor of representing the city of Imperial Beach at the Port of San Diego. It really is a tremendous opportunity, and I take it as a real obligation. I'm excited to be there and excited to be doing the things that I'm doing for Imperial Beach at the port. And I just want to thank you all for putting me there. I do appreciate it. Busy year. As you probably know, we actually have a new CEO at the Port of San Diego, Randa Caniglio. And Randa is the first female CEO in the 53-year history of the Port of San Diego. It's been a role traditionally dominated by men, and I will tell you that Randa has hit the ground running in a tremendous way. The business of the port did not stop even for an instant. She's been with the organization 15 years, and she's just done a tremendous job. And I know, Andy, that you've been interacting with her, and I think that you would agree that Rand has really stepped up to the plate. She's got a really deep knowledge of the port and actually all the member cities, which is a great thing. Financially, the port is doing well. Real estate-wise, we have new hotels under construction. We have new hotels coming. It has just really been a fabulous year, and from my standpoint, extremely busy. Mike Bixler, Frank Tassin, they always told me about being chair. Oh my, they were right. It's extremely busy. So I want to start with something that, as you all know, has been a real passion of mine, and that's Pond 20. And it's been a 17-year crusade, really, for me to get this done. And the picture you see, the fence is there. That was the short-term improvement. I love it. I think it's great. Much better than that rusting chain link fence. But the exciting thing that happened was that the long-term improvement is now finally done. The Board of Port Commissioners has officially voted to take the 95 acres and put them in a mitigation bank, an environmental mitigation bank. And then we're going to have a few pads on the side, one by Bikeway Village, about 3.1 acres, and then another one, 7.9 acres, on the other side of Pond 20 to the east side. But I look at this project, and it's so overused in our political realm, the win-win project. But truly, in this case, this really is a win-win. It's a win for the environment. It's also a win for economic development. And if you go back 17 years, Pond 20 was specifically excluded out of the South Bay Wildlife Refuge for economic development. I think there were some in town that couldn't see a path where the environment was honored and economic development was honored, but that's exactly what is happening with the mitigation bank. And based upon our studies with Kaiser Marston, we could get up to $500,000 an acre mitigation bank, which will yield a net between 10 and $15 million, maybe even a little bit more. And the really good news, and I want to thank my colleagues, even though they're not here tonight, but if you run into them, thank them. They agreed to put all net proceeds from Pond 20 into a fund, which I called Pond 20 Economic Development Fund. Those net proceeds are going to be split equally between San Diego and Imperial Beach for improvements down in this region, economic development improvements. That is a huge win, and I am extremely excited about that. And it really is, coming to fruition, a long-term goal of mine and of this city. So very exciting. And I thank you all for your support in allowing that to happen. So next thing, Palm Avenue or Imperial Beach Street End Improvement Projects. And this is an ongoing project. We've devoted $150,000. Study will be coming out, I think, in about a month. And our staff is going to come down and share that study with you. And as part of that project, we're going a little bit beyond the scope, and we're looking at some other things. This is one of them, the South Seacoast Comfort Station. We've identified down on the south side of Seacoast Drive that we don't have bathroom facilities there currently, something that is needed. This is a rough first design. You can see kind of the cool surfboard bike stops there. We're going to be bringing this back to you too. It still needs to be funded, but at least we're kind of in the conceptual stage of looking at some additional improvements that I think are needed along Seacoast Drive. IB, along with the rest of the Port of San Diego, has experienced a real business surge. All our tenants are doing great. Cowabunga, as you know, got sold recently, and they're up 30%. They're happy as can be. Every time I go in there, they're smiling. So they're doing well. All our tenants are doing well. In the Port of San Diego, really generally, all the tenants are doing much better as the economy improves. Great to see, but it's also nice to see down here. Even some of the tenants that aren't port tenants, I am just stoked about what's happening in IB. Just very, very excited about how our small city is growing in a great way. The Sun and Sea Festival, what a shot that was. And what a day that was. I will tell you, first of all, the port was happy to put $20,000 in that event. Great signature event for this city. But I'll tell you something. I was out and about all day long, you know, and there were times the rain just came down and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, on this day of all days. But you know what happened? People kind of went and they got into spaces, and then as soon as the rain stopped, they came right back out and they continued enjoying themselves. And it was a fabulous event, even despite the rain. I would be remiss if I did not thank the volunteers. You know, you can put money in, but that doesn't make an event. It's really community volunteers that make the event. Leah Goodwin and Shirley Nakawadasi really make this event happen. They spend a lot of hours getting this event to the point where it's done, and I want to thank them. And if you're watching, thank you, ladies. You did a great job. Really a terrific event. And then we just have a couple pictures of some of the sandcastles, and despite it all, some neat sandcastles. My favorite was the Star Wars one. And then, oh my, 15 years later, and my wife outshines me again in a very cool ride. I want to thank La Raza for providing that ride. Very, very cool. And I think it captures the classic Southern California theme that we have down here. And Lori, Councilmember Bragg, you were excellent in your narration. So that was kind of fun. And I'm going to have an every 15-year policy. So 15 years from now, maybe I get back in a parade. On to more general topics. The Port of San Diego, we are doing well. Our total budget's $150 million. Real estate revenues at $93 million are our largest source of revenue. The economic impact of the Port of San Diego is very large. We have a $7.6 billion annual economic impact. That's about 33,000 people on the tidelands that come down to work there every day. Also, off the tidelands, 13,000 vendors throughout the community provide goods and services to the port. So it's an economic impact that's akin to like Charp Hospital with their 7 hospitals. Very, very large. The port would be considered like the second largest company in the San Diego County region if they were ranked just on being a company in terms of economic impact. And then a very important thing to me, structural surplus is something that, a term that I started using. Balanced budget is not enough. The port every year has got to be in structural surplus, and you may ask why. Because over the last 50 years, the port has invested $1.7 billion into the San Diego region. You don't get that investment unless you create structural surplus and structural funds to invest back into the community. So it's extremely important that we mind our expenses and we grow our revenues every single year. And in that regard, I'm just going to kind of power through these. It has been a busy year for real estate. We have a number of projects: Marriott Hall, Sun Road Costera Restaurant. If you guys haven't been there, you've got to go. The newest, largest restaurant in San Diego with 800 seats. Phenomenal views to downtown. I mean, really, really spectacular. Only seconded by C180. So hotels we have going up. We have Lanefield North going up right now. We have Lanefield South, which will soon be going up, and we're negotiating 500 rooms with Hilton. And as you all know, we are negotiating with Rita for the Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan development, that'll be over 1,000 rooms and 400,000 square feet of convention center space. Why do I bring all this up? Why do you care about hotel rooms in San Diego and Chula Vista? Because, as I have said before, and it is critical, a rising tide floats all boats. And as the Port of San Diego comes up and those rental revenues come in, that is more money that we can distribute throughout all the member cities. So it's extremely critical for us to maximize our development opportunities where we can around San Diego Bay in an environmentally sensitive way, and that's what we're doing. I think I'm going to stop there. I've already blown the Mueller rule here, but again, I just want to say it is extremely dynamic. There is a lot going on, but not so much going on that we don't constantly look back at our cities and make sure that we are providing the kind of service that I think you expect and you demand. With that, I'm going to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Malcolm. Any questions or comments from the council? Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Malcolm, how different this report is from 1 year back when it was very bleak and very grim. This is just a tremendous report, and the port is doing well. And your creation of the Economic Development Fund, you know, when you stated that this was your crusade 17 years ago, it's been a long time, and I just want to thank you for never losing sight of that goal from the city of Imperial Beach. It's something that you dealt with when you sat here in this seat. So thank you for never giving up.
Thank you, council member. The time has gone like that.
Mr. Malcolm, always a pleasure. I am very happy about the environmental mitigation bank that you have created. IB San Diego splitting the funds. That's awesome. Sun and Sea Festival. I was one of those people who would duck and cover, come back out, and
Me
it's
too.
amazing. People, they came down and they stayed, and they will be back next year, guaranteed. Structural surplus is a key, and I'm glad you're doing that. I think all the cities are. I think it's super important that the port and that citizens realize that when we go to all these events and you see a little sticker and it says a port, or sometimes a big banner that says the port, that we don't take that for granted. And I know nobody up here does. And we're really thankful. And Mr. Powell, I see Mr. Powell at a lot of our meetings and other meetings throughout San Diego. And thanks for being part of the port as well, Mr. Powell. And I know, Mr. Malcolm, if I don't hear a rising tide floats all boats from you, I'm disappointed. So thanks for, so thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, council member.
You're great.
Actually, I have a different catchphrase there, and Ron Powell can say what it is. Time kills all deals. Stay here at every meeting until they're sick of it.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Powell.
Councilmember Spriggs.
Right. Thanks again, Commissioner and Chairman Malcolm, for a great presentation. I was going to say something very similar to my colleague, Councilmember Patton, that when you look at San Diego from above, you see that, you know, San Diego is built around the harbor. And, you know, as things around the harbor go, so goes San Diego, in the sense of our entire tourism industry, which is probably our biggest industry nowadays in San Diego. I haven't seen the data lately, but with all the hotels, all of the water activities, etc. And obviously, we in Imperial Beach want to be a part of that, because our long-term survival as a community depends on us getting a piece of that tourism pie and a piece of the dividends from the port's good financial management, etc. So I kind of wanted to put you on the spot a little bit, and but in an open-ended way. How could we, in your view, how can Imperial Beach be a better, more competitive partner with the port as far as its own future planning, engagement with the port, the things that we ought to be doing in terms of looking at our infrastructure, building for the long term, et cetera. You've been in your position on the port for a number of years now. You've seen what a lot of other communities are doing. You're now the chair. So in 2 minutes or less, what would your key points be of advice to us as a city council in terms of the things we ought to be looking for opportunities?
It's a great question. It actually is the right question. And I would maybe draw as much on my experience as a community resident as I would as a port commissioner. But I will tell you all, and my answer is simply this: Imperial Beach has to be Imperial Beach. Imperial Beach needs to do that extremely well, but I don't think any of us expect at the Port of San Diego that we're going to be putting up 20-story high rises. We're going to be building the kind of density that we're building in other areas along San Diego Bay, because it just simply would not be appropriate in Imperial Beach. The citizens have made very clear in IB that they want a small town community, way back from when I was a council member all the way up to now. But so my advice would be, and you don't need it, I'd say that right now because you're doing all the right things, building out this city with appropriate development that meets those size, compatibility, and scope, but really high quality development. Every development that goes in here, looking at it to make sure that that's a development that we're going to be proud of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. And then building up all the infrastructure around that development to really make the experience of coming to Imperial Beach something really unique. So when people come down here, it yells at them, classic Southern California. Now, you're already doing it. The port is going to be a part of that and help that. But you guys are really doing a fabulous job of really bringing out the best of Imperial Beach. So that would be my advice. And really, not as a port commissioner as much as a community resident, I really think that the job that you all are doing, I want to say thank you. This city is, it is so phenomenal. I have my friends come down here, and a lot of them live up north, and they come down to IB, and they're just like, this town is great. It really is showing. So I'm very proud of it, and you should all be too.
Thank you. And thank you. Do you have any comments, Mr. Billoy? It's been a pleasure to work with you over the last 8 months, I think. And I want to thank you for your leadership on Pond 20 and really the fact that you see the numbers for the port is doing way better than the national average. So I really appreciate that. And I think your vision for the region is in sync with our vision. So anyway, thanks for all the great work you do. And obviously to your fellow commissioners and the dynamic port staff who are always a pleasure to work with. So thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. Council members, thank you so much. And you enjoy working. We'll keep moving. Have a good one.
And with that, we move on to the consent calendar. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item numbers 2.1, 2.2, 2.4, and 2.5. We pulled item 2.3. Great, please vote. And now we will discuss, is that right? Have a discussion of item 2.3? We do this now? Oh, yeah, agenda. Okay.
Councilmember Patton, please vote. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now we move on to, so I have this right. Public hearings and item 4.1, action to continue public hearing for 741 Hickory Court. Public hearing is open and Assistant City Manager Steve Dush will give a report on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Steve Dush, Assistant City Manager. I'll be brief. The request on this item that you heard about a month ago for today is to continue the item. I spoke with the owners of the property, their counsel, who is actually here this evening, who spoke last time. He's in concurrence with the request for the continuance. Briefly, I would report that the roof has been repaired, the cars have been removed, and the item that they're working on is with the trash disposal. So again, our recommendation would be to continue the item as requested.
Good. Thank you. Is there any public testimony? There is. Oh, Mr. Jason Lizer. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. We do concur.
Just please state your name and
I'm
address for
sorry,
the record.
Jason Eliezer. We do concur. I think continuing it at this time is a great idea. I also very much wanted to thank the offices of the city attorney and the code compliance staff. Everybody's been very cooperative and reasonable and easy to work with. And we're still working out a couple of the issues, but we're very close. And I just wanted to make myself available. I know we talked for a long time last time, so if you had any further questions, I'm here, but I don't have anything else to add.
Good. Are there any questions or comments from the city council? Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. It sounds like there has been some progress on the project or on the 741 Hickory Court issue. I'm just wondering what the status is on the trash service.
As of right now, I know, and as I spoke with council before the meeting, they're still working on it. Perhaps they would be in a better position to indicate where they're at. From our end, we know that that has not been addressed yet, but perhaps council can provide a better explanation.
Absolutely. I would have thought that that would be the easy one to fix, and that removing the cars and patching the roof would be more difficult, but that has proven not to be the case. We're still negotiating with them. There's an issue regarding, there's a claim from them that the homeowner owes some back payments. We're trying to verify those and negotiate with them on those. I don't want to speak poorly about anyone at EDCO, but it's been a little less easy than working with the city attorney's office. But I did speak with them again today. I feel that we're very close regarding that, and there should be no problem getting trash started and services all in compliance by the next meeting as per the recommendation.
Great. Any additional comments?
I do have a comment. That's really disturbing to me. I know Steve South personally. EDCO has been our trash provider for a number of years. I find it very hard to believe that somebody is having a hard time getting trash service. And I'm also having a hard time believing that EDCO would not come to some kind of terms in a month to provide that service. So again, that is very disturbing to me, that this particular issue, and I agree with you, I would have thought that would have been the easiest one. So if it's just a matter of renewing trash service and possibly, I mean, I'm not going to try and tell EDCO how to do their business, but I'm sure they would accept payment, you know, an additional payment on what they owe. So we talked about this. And I'm just extremely disappointed that trash service has not been resumed at that address.
Councilmember Spriggs.
I wasn't at the last meeting where this issue was discussed, but I did read the item thoroughly from afar. I happen to be in North Carolina helping my son deal with a huge house with a lot of junk in it that he had inherited. 10 acres, 3,500 square feet of space that had to be emptied out so the house could be put on sale and the place put into shape. We did it in 4 days. 4 days, working hard.
Excellent.
Till 11 o'clock at night, etc. This may not be something for routine trash and recycling service. This may be something that requires, you know, a special effort. And with the additional time that's been made available, if it's not doable through the EDCO services, then I would certainly expect that there'd be a plan B to address the problem.
Absolutely. And to clarify, and we spoke about this, and I won't rehash too much from the last meeting, but there isn't an issue regarding trash at or on or in the property.
That wasn't the nature of the code compliance violation. It was simply that there was no trash service coming to the property. So the residents had not been storing trash or keeping trash out in the driveway or anything like that. The issue was simply that they had been disposing it of by other means. But the issue was simply that there was no trash service coming to the property. The bins had been revoked by EDCO, and we needed to just reinstate the trash service. I don't think there's ever been an argument, at least in this most recent set of code compliance issues, that that trash needs to be, that the property needs to be cleared of trash. It's not that that's not a problem, and should continue to not be a problem while we hash out the rest of the issues.
Thank you very much. Let's see. All right, so I'd like to entertain a motion to continue. Any other comments? Mr. Bilbray? Entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to October 7th, 2015 at 6 p.m. for further update and compliance and final resolution of the case. Is there a motion? Thank you. Second. Please vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Lizar.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dush.
Motion carried unanimously.
Now we have item 4.2, Imperial Beach Resort LLC, owner applicant, consideration of the design for a perimeter fence that would replace the existing construction fence surrounding the property located at 1046 Seacoast Drive in the CMU2 Seacoast Commercial Mixed Use and Seacoast Commercial Mixed Use Residential Overlay Zones. Resolution 2015-7626. Declaring the public hearing open. And Mr. Fultz will give a report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. 5 buildings were recently demolished at 1046 Seacoast Drive. The property is located in the CMU2 zone at Imperial Beach Boulevard and Seacoast Drive. This is the site as it was before the buildings were demolished, and all the buildings on the perimeter are now removed, and only the building in the middle is still remaining. These are the buildings that were demolished. And this is the site presently with the building in the middle and then the construction fence that is surrounding the site. And the applicant's proposing to remove that construction fence and replace it with a more aesthetically pleasing fence while they're processing the application for a new hotel. There are 3 options that were presented by the applicant. The first option is a vinyl coated chain link fence. It would be a durable material, resistant to vandalism, and would provide a least amount of view restrictions. The next option would be a wrought iron fence. It's also durable, resistant to vandalism. It has some minor view restrictions compared to the chain link, but it would be more aesthetically pleasing. And then the third option is to have a chain link fence with a fabric screen. This would conceal the site. Any pattern could be chosen, however, though it would obstruct views. And when staff was talking to the public safety department, having open views would be a benefit to the site because there's not 24-hour security. There is security on site in that building, but it's not 24 hours. So having open views would be beneficial. And then there's an option of placing art on any of the fence options. These would provide minor view obstructions, but could be considered a public benefit. And these are the 4 different options that were proposed: the chain link, wrought iron, fabric screen, and then having art on any of these fences. And the staff would recommend to adopt Resolution 2015-7626, which approves the vinyl coated chain link fence. The support of that is because the design review board reviewed the project, recommended approval of the vinyl coated chain link fence, and the applicant's preference is the vinyl coated chain link fence because it provides less maintenance and it would still be temporary, just between present time and between when the hotel gets approved. It would be removed at that time. However, the council can approve any of those options. The applicant stated any of the options would be acceptable. So the city council can approve the project with modifications requested by the council. So if you would choose a different option, just state which option is preferred, and we would staff would replace it within the resolution. You could also disapprove the project and deny it with specific findings, or continue the public hearing to a future date when we could provide more information. That concludes staff's report.
Great. Do we have any? I have one card. Mr. Mickelson, did you want to speak, or you just want me to read the card? Mr. Mickelson from the Chamber of Commerce supports agenda item 4.2. And additional comments, he supports the black vinyl coated chain link fence. Thank you very much, Mr. Mickelson. Okay, do we have any comments from city council? Oh, you have this here. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. We're talking about a temporary fence, and I think Mr. Foltz, in our discussion, that could be up to 2 years. So it's something that we're going to be looking at for quite a while. And so as community members and our tourists will be observing this for a long time, I would like to recommend, it would be my recommendation that we would go with the wrought iron fence, and then with the inclusion of some art panels in appropriate places. The chain link fence just is unacceptable to me, really. I think the wrought iron would last longer. I think it's more aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood. And the inclusion then of the art would, I think, achieve a goal that is something that we've been trying to achieve on street ends and up and down Seacoast Drive. So that's my recommendation. That's where I would go with this project.
Mr. Patton.
I think that's a great idea. I was looking at the vinyl coated chain link, and next to Felipe's right now, a big, I think it's galvanized chain link fence just went up, and it looks horrible. So the vinyl coated isn't quite far from that. I really like the idea of the wrought iron with patches of art, possibly from our local schools. We have an excellent school district here with a lot of artists from elementary school up to high school. So that'd be my choice for the art, local schools.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Any other comments from our council?
Yeah, considering the location, which is our main tourism area, and the property that is going to go there is going to be a big boost to that area. I think we're all anticipating a great project there that's going to be architecturally outstanding and economically outstanding, etc. I don't think we should cheapen it with a cheap fence around there, especially because it's going to be there 18 to 24 months, or who knows. I mean, we're all looking for this to go quickly. I would hope that our city staff would continue to work with the developer in as expeditious a way as possible, so that it's really more like closer to 12 months or 12 to 18 rather than more than 18. But it seems to me that my colleagues have hit it right on the button, that probably wrought iron is the best solution there. I mean, you've got one of our main streets, T-junctioning right there. You've got the street end that's been fully developed by the port with the art, street art there. So to me, it's really clear that we should do the wrought iron. As for putting art on it, I'm not so sure. The thing about wrought iron, you have a kind of a pure, simple, see-through fence of high quality. You can actually diminish that by putting the wrong things on there that block the view of the ocean, or that get vandalized, or may not be of the quality that would be beneficial to the area, considering how well traveled it is. So I'm open-minded about the art, but I don't think that it ought to be a requirement. I don't know who will make that decision, whether there's art and what art will be, what art it will be. And in the absence of some clear sense that there's going to be a quality control element there, I would disfavor art.
I'm going to speak before Mr. Patton. Mr. Milburn, any comments? Or Mr. Patton?
Just to add on to that, on that wrought iron fence on any construction zone, you're going to have big signs, banners, construction by this company. You need hard hats on this sign. So there's going to be signs on it. It's going to be broken up. So maybe we could find a happy medium of X amount of banners or X amount of public art pieces on it and see how it goes. I mean, if we have some schools that want to try it, and if it doesn't work, we take them down and we still have a wrought iron fence.
Are you suggesting then possibly maybe 3 to 4 panels of public art?
4 panels.
4
I
panels?
like 4. The round number.
Well, I think it's a good idea.
Wait, I just want to make
But
sure,
I
wait,
don't-
wait, just, let's make sure, I just want to make sure we're all, everyone's done
Having a
talking, so.
discussion, right?
Okay, just to make sure everyone's got a chance to speak. That's all. Ms. Bragg, were you done? Good, thank you, Mr.
Too much
Briggs.
regulation, destroys the spontaneity of our conversation.
Okay,
I think that's a great idea, Mr. Patton. My concern is, are you going to be the judge of what goes there or not?
Oh,
I mean,
I'm a
if you
horrible
are,
judge. You don't want me.
we could add that as a part of the resolution, and I'd be satisfied because I trust your judgment. But otherwise, I'm not sure, what we're going to get. And for that reason, I just, unless we can come up with an approach or ask city staff to come up with an approach, then and then look at it later, I would say, no art. But we need to have some sort of regulation about what's going to go up.
Okay, I agree with you, and I believe the mayor and myself will be judges, if that's okay with the rest of our council.
well, there's just an addendum. So that, if I may? Thank you. So the city actually got a grant from the port as part of our cultural arts series, and one of them was an estuary art sort of component. And so what Ed Villa has been working with Todd Stans, who's one of San Diego's best public muralists. He actually teaches art at Southwestern College in the long tradition of IB artists. He actually lives in Imperial Beach over by 13th Street. And he's working with Ed to carry out this project. And part of it would be to work with local schools and to curate art and photos from local schools in our tidelands. So I think the idea is to have Todd as a sort of artist help work with Ed and other residents, including the council, on this, so to have a curated experience. And I think the idea is not just this fence, but other fences. This is sort of the new thing that cities are doing. I think I took the photo on the right, bottom right of a downtown art fence. I was in Monterey with a construction project and local kids did an art fence. So I think the idea is that you can do a very good job with good frames, and it's a very sort of new way of dealing with these construction fences and sort of fences in cities in general. But I hate the word that government regulates art. I have a very big problem with that when the big hand of government starts talking about judging art and being a little bit over sensitive about what kind of art kids would do. But I'm sure that Councilmember Patton and I can work with Ed Villa and Todd Stans to identify and make sure it's very tasteful art on this chain link fence, on this wrought iron fence. How does that sound?
There is a condition within the resolution that puts a little bit of control on it if there's a concern regarding that. One is that it'd be managed by the applicant with consultation by the city. So we would be involved with who places it there. That it wouldn't have a commercial message. It wouldn't substantially impact the visibility through the site. So we wouldn't have an exact amount, at least per this condition, but it is something that would be considered, and that the city could require that the use of art be suspended at any time if there's an issue that does arise. So those are conditions that are in the resolution.
Thank you. Let's just remember it's a wrought iron fence in front of an empty lot, and that we've got chain link fences and construction sites all over the city. So it's sort of anyway, I just want to make sure we don't get overly ambitious in regulating a wrought iron fence in front of a construction site. But anyway, so do we have some consensus that we'd like a wrought iron fence with some regulated art in the conditions that the city set? Is that something that we want to? Okay. So I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2015-7626, approving a wrought iron link fence with the option of placing art on the exterior of the fence at 1046 Seacoast Drive as described and conditions described by the city of Imperial Beach. Do I have a motion? Okay, I'm sorry. Is there a second? Second, thank you. Thank you very much.
Motion carried unanimously.
Good. Now more fun. All right. Item 4.3, Mike Allen, applicant owner, administrative coastal permit, ACP design review case, DRC 1420 site plan review, and catechol exemption pursuant to CEQA Guidelines 15332 for the construction of a 14-unit residential apartment building at 640 Florida Street, MF 1147, Resolution 2015-7627. I declare the public hearing open. Mr. Fultz will give a report on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is for the construction of 14 new residential units at 640 Florida Street. The project's located in the CMU1 General Commercial and Mixed Use Zone. This is the project site. It's north of Palm Avenue and south of Teeple Park. And this is the project site today. And this is the site plan for the project. A majority of the building would locate over the site. There'd be setbacks on the side yards of 5 feet, on the rear yard of 10 feet, and portions of the building on the front would be 5 feet away from the property line. Pedestrian access would locate off of Florida Street, and vehicular and trash pickup would locate off of the alley. 2 enclosed spaces would locate off the alley on the side of the buildings, and then the parking garage would locate off the middle. This is the first floor plan. There'd be 2 ground units. These both face Florida Street, which is in this location. There's 21 parking spaces for the 14 residential units, which is 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which is the minimum requirement per our code. On the ground floor, storage space would be provided for the units, a gazebo in the front, and then also a patio cover. And then there'd be a foyer in the middle between the 2 residential units on the ground floor that would lead up to the second floor. And this is a staircase right here. This is a second floor plan. The applicant's proposing a community room, pergola, and viewing areas. This is the pergola seating area, leisure area, and this would be the viewing sitting room. Within the units, on the second floor, the units would provide a living room, kitchen, bathroom, and they would all have balconies as well. These are some samples of pergolas that the applicants thought about providing on the second floor, but none has been decided at this time. And this is the third floor plan. On the third floor, each unit would have 2 bedrooms. And these are the elevations on the east and west of the building. This is the portion that would face Florida Street, and this is off the alley. This is the south elevation, so this would be facing as if you were heading from Palm Avenue northward, you'd see this portion of the building, and this is the interior courtyard. And then this is north elevation, as if you were heading from Teeple Park south, you'd see this portion of the building, and then this is the interior courtyard. This is the colored plan. This is probably the best view of the plan that's proposed by the applicant with the colors that are proposed, various browns and beige, with some rock and also some block. And these are some nearby buildings in the area. There are a variety of multi-unit apartment buildings, and that's what the applicant is proposing. So it could be considered as consistent with the neighborhood. The design review board looked at the design and voted for approval of the design with a 3-0 vote, but they did recommend some conditions on the project if it was to be approved, to extend the stone further to the door on this elevation and also on the north elevation, to provide a darker color for the pop outs, which is provided on this view right here. That the upper wall on this portion should provide some signage so that there's not a blank wall. And then on the west elevation, that the applicant provides some rock to provide some visual interest on the ground floor, and different color stuccos for the second and third floor. There's some additional design opportunities that could be considered to provide an additional opening on the north and south portion of the viewing room, to provide a trellis corbel above the balconies, and also to use siding in appropriate areas. However, there is one issue that should be considered for this project, and it's been considered since the initial submittal, and that's the open space requirement. Because it's a residential project, 100% residential project, this project requires 4,200 square feet of open space. 60% of the open space is supposed to be at grade. So that's a little over 2,500 square feet of open space is supposed to be provided at grade level. Because the applicant's proposing 14 units requires 21 parking spaces, and he also needs 2 accessible units on the ground floor, the applicant's requesting that the grade be considered on the second floor because there's no room to provide it on the ground floor at the grade floor. On the second floor is where the applicant's proposing the community room, the balcony area, the viewing areas, and the square footage of uh, open space that would be required at grade, he's proposing on the second floor. In addition, the applicant's request to provide that open space on the second floor instead of on the ground floor is because it's just adjacent to Teeple Park. So the argument is that because it's near an open space area, if someone were to use at-grade open space, they would likely go to Teeple Park instead of use a small area for their unit. However, again, this is an interpretation that the applicant's requesting. The code states that 60% of the open space is supposed to be at grade, and the project can only meet the open space requirements if that second floor is considered at grade. So there's two, or the options available to council is either adopt the resolution approving construction of the project if the second floor open space can be considered at grade, or adopt the same resolution disapproving the project because it does not meet the minimum criteria set forth in our zoning code. Other options is to approve the project with modifications as required by council or continue the public hearing to a future date. And that concludes staff's report.
Great, thank you very much. I have a number of comment cards here. Mr. Putland, Mr. Johnson, and Ms. Archer, did you want to speak or you just wanted to? Okay, so we'll start. Mr. Putland, did you want to speak? Okay, so you can come. Mr. Johnson, did you want to speak? Okay.
Randy Putland, 20 Ebony, Imperial Beach. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, this is the third time I was inspired to come by my neighbors, talk about the projects down here. And I gave you a list last time of some codes that I wanted you guys to look at, some existing grades, finished grades, start thinking we could work together like we did on the last project. And so this project, you know, it looks great. I mean, the mayor and people wanted us to start looking not just at the beach. You thought it's important to look in other parts of the city, which I think is important too. So down here, and you know, the code is pretty clear. You know, it sounds like the code says the grade is there for a reason. It's probably to keep the mass density of the building down a little lower, so it doesn't look like just this huge building, and takes away from the environment in the neighborhood. I guess that's interpretive, but I mean, to me, there's other few things down there. It was hard. Do you guys get to see the big plans? It says existing grade on them and the big ones, and study them. I mean, I've only saw the 11 by 17s. It's hard to see the exact numbers that sit on, you know what I mean? You can't see the numbers of the elevation. You can't really tell the height. Anyway, I couldn't really comment too much on that because I couldn't see it, but I know you guys have probably studied it. And if you have, that would be a great thing. The grade on the second floor seems to be kind of a bust to me. And it says the code says it should be on the first floor. And I guess that's how my comment is. I think it should be per code. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Putland. Mr. Johnson? And just to note, Mr. Johnson submitted an email letter to the council. It's in the addendum.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Darren Johnson. I've lived in IB for 17 years at 137 Elder Avenue. I'm an engineer and I looked over these plans briefly, the plans that are up here. This project's not exempt from CEQA. This project's not consistent with the applicable general plan policies or the applicable zoning regulation. This project does not comply with the municipal code. It violates the parking space size requirements. They're too narrow. It violates the open space requirement. 60% of open space is on this project is not at grade. In fact, the applicant is asking, as they stated, the council to interpret at grade to mean second floor, which is absolutely absurd. These plans are incomplete since they do not provide dimensions for much of the building in terms of height, parking space depth, drive lane width, etc., etc. Without adequate dimensions, there is no evidence to support the claim that this project meets the municipal code requirements. There are likely many more violations that we can't even determine at this point without that information. Approval of this project would result in significant effects on traffic. There's a park on the street that children visit, so there are concerns for their safety due to the increased traffic. There are questions of whether that intersection can handle the increased traffic volume created by these 14 units. If this project is approved, the council will be abusing its discretion by approving a project where the findings are not supported by evidence. Finally, please do not approve this project since it will create legal exposure for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Archer?
Mayor, City Manager, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this project. I think I'm going to be reiterating some of the statements you've already heard. Veronica Archer, I live at 151 Elder Avenue. Again, very concerned about the proposal that the second floor could be counted as open space. Please don't accept that. That's just wrong. The whole point that open space was supposed to be at ground level was so that these massive structures wouldn't be built, so that there would be open space at ground level, not that it could get absorbed into the second floor. Also, the parking spaces, and again, I know this has already been reiterated, it doesn't appear that that many spots will actually fit in that space because there are columns. So the zoning requirement is that the spaces actually do need to be a little bit larger. I believe zoning says 8 feet 6 inches. So again, I think the plans need to be looked at very closely to make sure that they are meeting the minimum requirement. Also, this parcel is on a slope, so it does need to be very closely looked at what is considered grade level. So didn't take that into consideration with this particular parcel. Again, please just enforce the current zoning laws, and I ask that you, when looking at any of these construction projects, that we think of the long-term effect for Imperial Beach and not, you know, of course, every project is its own project and it needs to be looked at individually, and that's what zoning laws are for, but we also look at its long-term effects to our community. I've been in, you know, purchased my house 14 years ago. I've been in ID for 30 years. So I definitely have a vested interest, have a couple young kids. We're not going anywhere. So I look at these projects as this town is my future and my children's future. So I ask that you do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carey? And you wanted to have Ruth Cola donated her time to you. Do you need 6 minutes? Okay. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Michael Carey, 862 4th Street, longtime resident and longtime involved in issues related to zoning and heightened density, et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned the last time about neighborhood revitalization. That was actually a major theme back in the 90s for a while, and it had to do with that same thing. You needed to focus not only on the beach, where it's a lot of attention, but also throughout the city. And this is a very good example why something like commercial zoning, although we think of it, and we were here the last time about stuff down at the beach, goes all over the city. This is actually in the MU zone. And the MU zone, if you've seen what they got done with it, is it's not only down Palm, but it goes back, I don't know how far, I think a block on either side, or perhaps even more. And one of the things that brings up is how do I want to say this? To me, the need to revisit what the MU2 zone was intended to do and what it's turning out to be. And this is a good example of that, because this is in the MU zone, which says this is for commercial. It's for, and once upon a time that meant to see that you get commercial built, mixed use commercial on the bottom. Well, then it was determined in the doing of this, well, if you get off of Palm, you probably don't, you're not likely to be building too much commercial. There's a few places that you do. So in the zoning code, it says basically if you're not on Palm, you can have all of the, if you want to call it the perks of the MU zone, but you can build all residential. And a good example in this is you couldn't see it. I really think there should be a truth in advertising when they put a drawing up. I mean, there was 5 feet on on one part of it and 0 feet on another part of it. And when you looked at that drawing, there were trees, there were all kinds of stuff in front, and it looked very nice. But this is commercial, and it has a commercial requirement. It can be right on the sidewalk, and it will be for a good part of it. You know, it goes up. And that had a reason why you would do that with commercial. You want a commercial out there, but not residential. If this were residentially zoned, there would be a 15-foot setback, which is what there should be. But this is according to code, they're allowed to do it. So I guess I'm making a case that besides not liking that, we really need to take a look at the commercial and the MU zones, because there are unintended consequences of what got done by that. I think you've received a lot of comments and also from the staff about issues within it. Looking at it from the top in the drawing, it's all the way out. There's 5 feet, 10 feet in the back, right out on the front. So from the outside, it's a box. It takes up the whole area. And the last, I think, point I want to make, because there are many of them, but I'll just go back to the one which everybody is making, and the staff made pretty strongly. There are areas of interpretation, and you can say, oh, well, and they are important, but if you have enough feet, you have 24 feet or 26 feet, or you're doing this or you're doing that. And I think that those need to get looked at. I'm not saying that parking isn't important, but this is a pretty black and white when you're talking about grade, and you're talking about what you can do with it. This is not an interpretation. I think what they're asking you to do is frankly I think I kind of agree, in this case, put the city at risk by violating a code where there's something so, you'd have to go so far to call it an interpretation. And I feel kind of bad about that, because when you look at it, in a certain sense, it's a rock and a hard place. You can see what they built. It kind of makes sense. It would be nice on the second floor to have all that space for the kids to play. And it's not probably good for them to be down on the ground floor where the cars are, and I don't know what they would do. But what it really means is they need to really redesign the project. You can't take a commercial thing that was intended to define the limits for commercial out to the edge and all of that kind of stuff and put residential into it. You have to have a whole other mindset and develop it a whole different way. And that's what I think they need to go back, or at least be prohibited from dealing with that. So anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Great. I have no more public comments. I want to thank everybody for their thoughtful. I don't have a card from you. Or you did? Okay.
First off,
Do you
I-
want? I
oh,
think
on
I
Mike
think for the
Allen.
record, we have to have a card or not, or do I just?
Well, he can submit it after
I
he speaks
think
if
I'm
you
part
want
of
to
the
have
deal,
that.
right?
I don't. I would. Okay.
Yeah, you can either have him fill it out now or just submit it after he speaks.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure I
Mike
was
Allen.
told that you're going to. Thank you very much.
Mike Allen. I live at 2896 Capenna Court in Humboldt. I've been a resident of IB since 1962 through about 90. When I got out of college, I took a job in an environmental company, and I got moved around for quite a few years. I just came back to IB in the last about 4 years. Been building down here, small homes. I think I'm on 11 and 12 vacant lots, building single-family residences. I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm not sure what you're talking about on the parking and that. It's all in compliance. They're 9-foot spaces, 8'6" and 9 foot. I've got handicap spaces. In fact, I have additional spaces besides those. And I had to do handicap van accessory parking, which is basically 15 feet, 8 foot high. But to tell you a little bit about why the project becomes like it becomes. And I understand what you're saying. It does look like a big footprint. But it's R1000. I waited 9 months for the zoning to get redone when the coastal commission was done it 2 years ago when I bought the property. It finally got done. It came up to be CMU 1, not 2, CMU 1, which allowed a full residential aspect to the property. I grew up here. I've never personally liked the commercial residential mix. And there's good reason, because then you have business people sharing the same parking spaces as the tenants. It doesn't work out well. And then you end up actually filling up the streets and doing what you're doing. I've tried to put the component of parking underneath the building because of the shape of the lots, much less the elevations. If you go over to Rosa People Park.
Mr. Allen, could you speak into the microphone just so they're...
Yes. If you go into the Rosa People Park, you can see when the city built the park, they elevated it. The lots adjacent to it on the south side are all lower, about 4 feet. It's 42 inches, I believe. I don't know if you went out there, but it's 42 inches and a little higher in some spot. And to boot, they actually put the park on my property by 2 foot 8 inches. So you've got an elevated slope on one side going down from street level, elevated up 42 inches. It's kind of difficult to say, oh, we're going to put the buildings down here and we're going to look at that and a 6 foot fence, because when you're up on the park and you have a fence above it, that's what you're looking at. You're down about like this, that part of the building level where the park is. And the lot slopes off to the back. Along with that, the lot is a funky kind of shape as it goes straight along Florida Street and then it doglegs back. And why they did that, I'm not sure, but it looks like they were opening the egress for people to get into a turn lane by Hutch's Realty. And the haircut place up here at Billie Jean's, right there. So I think that was part of the idea when they dipped it through. So it got a funky shape. Behind there, if you go there, if you notice, there's the bank behind there, and it's elevated up about 9 to 15 feet behind there. So when you go down into the property, you go down, the park's elevated. This side is not elevated with one lot, 150-foot lot by 150. It is owned by the Johnsons, who I've offered to buy that property from to kind of expand that footprint, but they're considered commercial, and they own the haircut place and the little place on the corner, and I don't know what it is, like a Metro phone shop or something. And so they believe that they're going to convert all that to commercial and elevate that back up. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, Tyler, can you pull a picture of the house that's next door there? And I don't know if you guys have actually went down to the site and looked. I don't know what you've seen.
This is all we have.
Okay, well, the house next to it right there where he's doing the highlighter, it's a piece of crap. I mean, it is bad. It's 50, 60, it's more. It's slumlorded, and that is in preference to getting something nice there. It is a difficult lot. It is. It's a difficult lot to build. I'm wondering why we got, issues about it's out of compliance and you're going to be sued in this. I don't know about that. I'm not intending to build anything that's ready. You can go by and look at the houses that I built on East Lane, Loudon Lane, Connecticut, 7th Street. They're beautiful homes. The people who've bought them have loved them. They're very nice. They've been great additions to the city. I own a lot on 9th Street. Me and my wife are trying to get our place in Humboldt sold and get back down to the beach. We enjoyed it here. I worked on your dad's campaign when I was a kid. You and me actually went to school together. You're a little younger. Not much. I like IB, and I'm not trying to force anything on anybody, and I feel bad that that's how you guys are looking at it. We need housing in IB. We need apartments. And you may say, hey, that's not the product we need. The zoning makes you get that box the way it's shaped. We've got 21 parking spaces. They're 9 foot wide, 16 foot deep minimum. The truth is they need to be 18 to 20 foot deep. Then you need a 25 foot backup space in there. Then you need the 5 foot setbacks on either side. 10 foot in the back. You got to have handicap on the ground floor or put in an elevator. I mean, there's so many components to building. The open space requirements are very difficult. In fact, mathematically, like I've told the city, you guys got mathematics that don't work because you can't fit all that on a 15,000 square foot lot and say you're allowed to build 15 units. Now, but that's the zoning. When you buy and you purchase these properties, I'm not buying the property to say, oh, I might build 1 unit there. The value of this property is set by what it can be used for. You go out and buy a heavy duty truck to tow a tractor with. You don't go out and buy a heavy duty truck to do your daily commute. This property is in a high density residential area. It was meant to be occupied with apartments. I mean, I grew up on 13th Street right by the old Funky factory there. That area has always been high density all the way up through almost to 7. It's been intermixed and built like that. I'm sorry that you guys feel that way. I'm trying to get a project through. Yeah. And I believe we are in compliance. We are asking for you to look at the open space on the bottom floor.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Allen. Just stay there. Just stay there and just make sure you're talking to the microphone so we can
Yes.
hear you and everybody in the audience can hear you. We're going to start with council question. Mr. Patton.
I don't have any questions. I just have some questions for Mr. Foltz. And, when projects come up to city council, we get the agenda and there's normally a process I personally go through. And I'm sure each of us does something a little different. First, I'll read it. I get as, versed as I could or can. I talk to whatever experts I can. I make phone calls, talk to other people, find out as much information. Then I start reading my emails, my text messages, get a little more insight. I will listen to the public comment. And then I look at the staff recommendation and I put all that together and look what's best for the community.
Yes, sir.
It's not funny. It's serious.
Well, no, I'm looking because I'm
Okay.
like, where would they come up with these measurements that are?
Okay, well,
so
I'm
screwed
talking
up?
about what I'm doing, okay? So I think it's very, very important that we look at these very, very closely, and I have looked at it closely. And Mr. Foltz, I think it's Mr. Carey. I want to make a comment Mr. Carey made earlier, but Mr. Foltz, here's my one question for you. Do you think this project meets the open space requirement as it's written in our code?
It does not.
It does not.
And to be
But
fair
this-
to the city, he's never said, hey, this is gonna breeze through. It's not functional. Your code doesn't allow you to meet those requirements.
That's fine, Mr. I don't think we'd have a debate, Mr. Allen. It's just more of a question.
I'm not done.
Yeah, so Mr. Patton isn't done.
So,
just,
so that's a no.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And that in itself, for me, it puts me a no on this project. Mr. Carey came up with some good points as well as the other speakers. I think we really do need to look at the MU zone and commercial zoning and revisit to what it was, what it is now. And so projects like this don't come up and we get into this discussion. And before it comes to us, it's a little more cut and dry, not just, well, maybe we should do this. But this is absolutely cut and dry. It doesn't meet the open space requirement in our code. Thank you, Mr. Volz.
Mr. Spriggs.
Please hold on. I've got to ask Mr. Foltz a couple questions as well for clarification before I ask you anything. But thanks for being here and for your comments. In your professional opinion, why is the 60% open space at grade level requirement in the code?
One of the references in the code even talks about a desire to do tot lots, things along those lines, so that individuals who live in an apartment building or a mixed-use project, things along those lines, any residential development really, have areas that are outside the building to utilize. So essentially, that's why it was in the code to be at grade. Not sure if at the time it was desired to reduce the footprint of buildings as well, but that could have been a consideration.
So let me follow up with, it seems to me from what you've said, you've covered one major possible reason for 60% of the open space requirement being at grade or at ground level. And that is amenities for the residents, the assumption being those amenities are best on the ground floor, which the developer has challenged very directly with the amenities on the second floor. Another reason isn't just the building footprint size, but it's also the aesthetics in the neighborhood of having some open space, even if it's not accessible to the general neighborhood, it's private property. Wouldn't you say that's another reason for having that requirement?
And Mayor, if I may, respond to that. That was one of the discussions that Tyler and I had, because this is a commercial zone district, and I think that's what some of the ideas have been brought up today, is that if this were commercial, then that open space requirement isn't there. So that's where there is this sort of discussion about the form of the building, and the use is driving, the use in this case is driving what that open space requirement it is. So the form in this zone district could look like it were, but for the use, if that makes any sense. And so to your point, the question about whether open space is allowed or not, it's very common to have an open space requirement for residential. The zoning code that we have in IB does not have, it doesn't distinguish between product types, residential product types, whether it's multifamily or single family detached. The requirement for open space for residential is the same regardless of the product type, nor is there any sort of a provision, which again is not uncommon in codes, where it has that requirement for a proximity to other open space. And I think those were some of the elements that the applicant was bringing up.
Right, understood, thank you. This highlights this problem between commercial and residential, and we have this hybrid zoning here. But this is clearly a residential development, and the residential standards are being applied to the development, although there are some, the developer is taking advantage of the commercial zoning in terms of the setback issues and the footprint.
Yes.
The developer would be taking even more advantage if we were to read out the open space element, allowing an even greater footprint than even commercial would allow. Well, allowing the same footprint that commercial would allow if it was purely 100% commercial. So when we've looked at projects in the commercial zone, I'm speaking to us here for our consistency purposes, that are in the pure commercial zone, for example, the two projects on Seacoast Drive that we recently approved. We allowed some flexibility in the analogous area. It's not the same thing as the open space requirement, but in how the developer could use incentive could achieve some incentives for density by creating open spaces. Okay, some of those have been cut back a little bit, but we've been flexible in those, and that's when it's 100% commercial. For example, allowing open space on an upper level, or giving them some credit for that. Controversial, but we've done it. In a purely residential environment, however, where we're looking at the neighborhood picture, from a neighborhood standpoint, from people living there, not just going there for commercial activity, but really 100% sort of living there. I think we have to pay attention to the open space residential requirement. So my last question to you before I ask the developer this question is, what percentage of the total open space requirement, 60% of the total open space requirement is required to be at grade? What percent is actually at grade in the project as proposed?
Let me calculate that really quick.
I think it's somewhere like 52%.
Well, let's.
It's about 766 square feet out of 2,500.
Right, it's a small percentage.
Yes.
look, I understand what you guys are asking for.
I've
I'm
had,
just-
I'm going to ask you a
Okay.
question. All right, I'm going to ask you a question. And I understand you're kind of on the spot and,
No,
but-
no,
but-
I understand
but,
what you're saying.
you know, if the project can go forward in some form, it's a good thing. So my question to you is, if you were to comply with the open space requirements, you would have to probably cut back on parking. And you'd probably therefore, because of the arithmetic you were talking about that works very challenging issues for developers, we know that, you'd have to cut back on the units.
Right. Well, I already have-
Or maybe have fewer units that are larger. I don't know. How would you do this project if you had to cut back on the, if you had to provide the open space as required by the code?
Well, I've already started cutting units back, and doing that. Basically, I think in order to do what you're asking, I'd probably have to get rid of, in order to keep a decent look, probably 2 units. And I wouldn't have an issue with that, but I can tell you, cost-wise, as far as payoff, this is mine and my wife. She's not here, but me and my wife represent Allen and Sons Construction. That's it. This is what we're going to use for our retirement. We plan on being down here and saying, okay, this is what it needs to pay off in under 20 years. Believe it or not, I'm over 50, barely. But yeah, I'd like to retire before I'm 70 and be able to have something coming in. At a certain point, the cost of these buildings that it costs to build and operate and everything, there would be no money to be made on these until at a later point. And, I don't know what I would do. Like I told Andy, I go, you could probably package this thing up and sell it. For me, 12 units doesn't make, it doesn't even make its payments when you're all done. Now, like you had said, you could build bigger units, less of them. You're not reducing, you reduce the number of units required or parking spaces required in a sense, as long as you stride that 3-bedroom deal. Larger unit usually means more bedrooms. If you add bedrooms, you're adding parking. So it's kind of one of those catch numbers. 21 spaces is a lot of spaces. 14 units is the valuation number that we've come up with that is best. We started off with, if this was truly a commercial residential deal, you could go 16 and 4, or 2 and 14. But there was no way you could get the parking in there. I was like, well, there's no way. You can't do it. Even the math won't even add up. And 14, we actually got it to be close. That's when I came to the city and said, listen, there's no living area to speak of besides the 2 ADA, not dedicated units, but ADA units. They came and said, well, you're going to have to provide that open space for those 2 units, the 420 square feet. Said, okay, we've been working on that, got it pretty well. Each of the units that are downstairs has the open space adequate. Upstairs, there's lots of open space. It's not downstairs. It doesn't meet the
Right.
quote, the rule. I mean, like you said, hey, that's a no for you.
It's not grade level.
Right, it's not grade level. There's no living going on at grade level for those tenants. These are townhome type apartments. They live on the first floor and they have an upstairs above that where the bedrooms are. They will park their cars and walk upstairs. So if we wanted to put a weightlifting room or whatever, a room that's usable for events on weekends, whatever, it's available. The mezzanine in the middle with the pergolas is a usable space. I know it, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's not on ground level, but they're not going to be living on ground level. We don't live in our garages. And the space where they're going to be living is on the second level.
So I understand the arguments. The argument is a financial one. And on one hand, in terms of the cash flow of the property, and the argument is the tenants' uses in terms of the open space. So I understand those arguments. I think our concerns, from what I've heard, my concern, I should say, is the impact on the neighborhood as a residential, not as a commercial neighborhood, and the precedent that we're setting if we were to go along with this. so this now is back to the staff and also our city attorney, and that is, if we are essentially eliminating the 60% ground level requirement or reducing it, just let's say 50% or 40%, assuming an amended project could come in at that, instead of 30% or whatever it actually is right now. In any event, if we're approving something less than 60% ground level, is that a variance? Is that something that requires, I mean, I'd rather deal with that straight up as us making an exception to the 60% requirement rather than saying we're going to treat the second floor as grade level. I mean, to me, that's false. That's not what it is. Grade level is grade level.
I mean, we didn't do an evaluation for a variance on this, but variances have certain findings that you have to make and, you know, it may not meet that to lessen, take it from 60% or lower for a variance in this case.
Do you have a
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, council member, typically a variance cannot be self-imposed or economic. And so they are typically physical hardships on a property that aren't generally located in properties in the vicinity. And so if that clarifies, that's why we didn't seek a variance, because it would be self-imposed and it would be economic. And so that kind of eliminates you from the possibility of a variance.
So the question of what are we really approving when we have a 60% ground level open space requirement and we're not enforcing it? What are we actually doing then? What is that called?
Well, as staff, I guess alternative A with the resolution to approve the project, it's essentially interpreting grade level at a different level. That's what you're doing if you're approving the project as is. Staff also prepared a resolution, a draft resolution for denial, which doesn't
Right.
meet the, right.
In your opinion, as city attorney, as well as staff, if we did that, if we said ground level to not ground level, it really can be up in the air someplace. Will that come back to us in the next development proposal and the one after that and the one after that? Is there any basis to distinguish this project as being so exceptional that we're not going to be stuck with that interpretation from this point forward?
Well, you do essentially, yes. When you're looking at projects, you are going to look at the specifics here. So if you were going to make that interpretation, you have the fact that he's mentioned there is some grade issues, and the fact that they're right adjacent to a park, so that's taking up potentially the open space. So, but it would be dependent on, kind of a case by case look at other specifics. Other lots may not be in the same situation. Other lots could be on the side of a hill, and so, your first floor would be at a different level or something like that. So, it depends on how many other lots are similar to this in Imperial Beach, and they would be asking for kind of the same interpretation.
Well, we're pretty flat. Okay, so I think where I'm coming from is that, you don't have the number in terms of what the actual
It's
percentage-
about 17%.
about 17%. So we're going from 60% to 17% grade level open space. I don't know what the right number is to set a precedent that will stick with us for a long time, but I don't think it's that low, in my opinion. I can't support the project at 17% versus 60. And I understand you've made your points already. If there's anything further you'd want to say, that's fine. But remember, we're all here to deliberate, and that's what we're doing, not to argue.
Mr. Allen, thank you very much. And
I got a question. Tyler, how do you come up with 17% at grade?
The rear landscaped area, the foyer, and the gazebo are the only areas that meet the minimum dimensions at grade. On second floor, that's where you have a majority of the grade of the open space, which is the pergola area, the leisure viewing area, and the community room.
Okay,
which
you
would be
said it's
60%.
2,500 feet. is
On the
what we
second
need.
floor, you meet the
No,
2,500.
on the 60% is 2,500 feet,
Mhm.
2,700 feet.
On the
total?
second floor.
I mean, I'm looking at this space that's 35 by 15, and I've got 5 foot by 50 foot by 70 feet, and another 5 foot by 50 feet.
It has to have minimum dimension of 10 by 10.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Appreciate all your feedback and comments. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Sometimes you have to go with your gut instinct. And when I first looked at this project, and I have to admit that the plans were very lacking. I think it was difficult for our staff to actually interpret what was going on here. I know for myself, it left a lot to my imagination, and sometimes that's not a good thing. My first reaction was that, and I know this neighborhood well. My son lived in one of these apartments. My grandson and I used to go to Teeple Park all the time. I had a best friend who lived on Cala. Preschool that my grandson went to is in this neighborhood. My first reaction, the first thing I said was, that's a dense neighborhood. The second thing I thought was, that's a dense project for this neighborhood. And if you look at these surrounding buildings, over the years, we've always talked about how dense this part of town is. So I started thinking about the impacts to the neighborhood, and they're great. They are great impacts. So I started delving into the project, and there are things we could do to spruce it up and make it look different. Mr. Allen, some of your other single-family projects here in town have been wonderful additions to the community, but this is not a single-family home. This is proposed to be 14 homes. And I have really struggled with this project. Like I said, I looked at it, talked with Tyler, talked with Steve. We've had many discussions over this. I did not talk to the developer. I was not on the mailing list for one of the letters that came in. Perhaps next time I will be. I cannot support this project the way it is. If you would like to bring us back another project that clearly meets the 60% requirement, I would certainly entertain that, but I cannot support this project as it is.
Thank you, Councilmember Bragg. Mr. Bilbray, any comment there? Thank you, Mr. Allen. I know this isn't easy, but we appreciate your feedback and your testimony, as well as appreciate all the public that gave comments. I know this area very well. Can you go back to the picture of all the different apartments, the other part of the neighborhood? So I know this neighborhood very well, and there's a lot of mixed bags in all these projects, and the majority of these apartment buildings represent the zenith of bad design and bad development in Imperial Beach in the 60s and 70s. And unfortunately, I think this project doesn't meet the requirements of good design and great design that we're seeing on multifamily projects, especially in South County. If you look on Ivy Boulevard, when you go down to Coronado Avenue past Emory School, there's some really good multifamily units, great design, especially in San Ysidro, that are nationally award-winning projects. I'd like to see some more thoughtful design, something that really stands out. And I definitely concur with my colleagues and the public on the issues of open space. I'm very concerned about what in theory appears to be using a park to meet open space requirements. Because generally in that kind of thing, you'd have developers would buy into some sort of open space requirement, or a sewer requirement, or a mitigation, conservation mitigation bank or something like that to actually be able to use that access to open space. So that's, and I know a lot of communities require that for parks, et cetera. So I guess I'd like to hear, I've had lots of different discussions here, but I'd like to hear a motion from my colleagues, and so we can one way or another move this forward. Anyone want to entertain a motion?
I would move that we adopt resolution number 2015-7627, disapproving the project because it does not meet the minimum criteria set forth in the City of Imperial Beach zoning ordinance.
I'll second that motion.
Please vote.
Mayor, just for the record, that would be the I don't know if you submitted that under last minute agenda or if you just have a copy.
I need to
of
also
the resolution.
close the public hearing.
Yes.
Send it to the city council. I'm closing the public hearing.
This is the resolution that was written as a draft to disapprove the project.
Okay, do you want to read? So I'll do this then. You want me to do this or you want to read it?
Well, Councilmember Patton and I are having a sidebar discussion. We just want to make sure that if we vote yes on this motion, that it means no.
Right, so the alternative resolution, 2015-7627, disapproving the project, which I just handed to the mayor, is a resolution that disapproves the project based on the fact that it doesn't meet the open space requirement in the city's zoning code. And that's what it specifies. So yes, if you voted in favor of this alternative resolution that the mayor has, that would be disapproving the project based on the open space requirement not being met.
Okay, where is that resolution
Here, let me
and why
give it to
don't
you,
I have it?
And then I will let you read that. Much easier.
Okay, is that different than what I'm looking at?
That is different than what is in the agenda package, yes. The one in the agenda package is approving the project. This is a much shorter resolution, essentially stating that the development requires X amount of open space. The council has interpreted that open space has not been met at grade level. Therefore, the project should be denied because it does not meet the zoning code requirements as required under the site plan review and the design review permit and the coastal development permit. That's what the resolution to disapprove the project says.
Thank you.
Do you want to read that motion? Or, okay.
Can I make a comment before we vote? Is that possible?
Sure, but brief, please.
Oh, it's me. To the developer, I'd say, this is we have two choices. But I hope you come back. All right, I hope you come back. And I, for one, I can't speak for my colleagues. If you don't hit 60% exactly, or 55 or something like that, we can, I could work with that. I could live with that. But we've got to be in the ballpark. And right now, we're just too far out of the ballpark.
Thank you very much. Now I'll read this motion. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, denying an administrative coastal permit design review case, site plan review and categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA guidelines for the construction of a 14-unit residential building permit at 640 Florida Street. Is there like that second? Great. Please vote. I'm sorry.
Right, he just read the title of the new ordinance, so can we have a new motion to approve?
Yes,
I mean, I'm
that's
sorry,
what-
of the
that's what I'm doing. Okay,
resolution
so-
disapproving.
I'm doing a new motion to approve. Do I read it again then? Okay, okay. Okay, so I thought I was done. Okay, thank you.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Then move on to item 2. Thank you. Item 2.3, and this is resolution number 2015-7625 to repeal various outdated council policies. And I think, Mr. Hall, you were going to briefly summarize this. And the idea was to have a brief discussion and then possibly review this at a later date.
Mr. Mayor, I could, since I asked the item to be pulled, I could specify exactly the points that I was concerned about so that Mr. Hall could address those and we could be out of here
Okay.
quickly, rather than go through the whole thing. So the two items that I had concerns about were item 201, the 1992 council policy regarding status of city contracts. The comment in the staff report on this was repeal because the policy is not used. The city manager and department heads evaluate contracts and update contracts on an ongoing basis. So the policy has been passed out. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but my concern was that maybe there is something of value in that policy regarding status of city contracts. And before we throw it out, we should take a look at it. Because that's a very important area for the expenditure of city funds is city contracts. The second one was I was for, sorry? Okay. Yeah, second item is 413, policy 413, 1996, transfer of money within budgeted funds. Repeal because the city council approves the budget and the IBMC, that's the municipal code, provides for the city manager's authority for expenditures. That's a 1996 policy, just 19 years old. I wanted to understand what that policy says and what's wrong with it, because we've always had a city manager form of government here, and what's different now compared to this policy. So
Councilor-
those are the two items.
You bet. Councilor Spriggs, item 201, as you mentioned, was that the city manager shall provide an update during the budget of all the city contracts and the status of those contracts. We certainly could leave that in as an existing city policy. I think that's good practice, and I think we do it anyway. And so I don't have any problem if the council wants to keep that in there. Typically, when we're preparing the budget and when staff is acting, we don't typically refer to the council policies. These are policies of the council. That said, if you want to leave 201 in there, I think that's good practice, and I think we would do it regardless of whether or not it's in the council policies. The removal of 413 is simply because it's duplicative of what's already in the Imperial Beach Municipal Code. And there's no sense having it twice. Anytime you have two ordinances or policies that say the same thing, when one of them change, you end up with a lot of internal inconsistencies.
Right.
So in that it's already in the municipal code, we thought it could be removed from the council policies. That's the simple reason on 413.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. As far as I'm concerned, then, I would be happy to move acceptance of this item, with the exception of 201 that we would leave in the city policy, the council policy. That's my motion.
Motion carried unanimously.